I'm sitting on a bench in the park near my house. Same bench I've sat on for 30 years. My grandson Marcus walks over and sits down next to me. He's 16. Doesn't say anything for a while. Just stares at the ground. I asked him how school was. He shrugs. I ask if something happened. He shakes his head. Then, after a long silence, he says something that's been stuck in my chest ever since. He says, "Grandpa, do you ever feel like it wouldn't matter if you weren't here, like the world would just keep going and nobody would really notice?" I'm Harold, 87 years old, and that question hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. I spent 40 years fixing pipes and toilets and leaky faucets in people's homes. Nothing glamorous, nothing anyone would write about. I buried my wife Ruth 4 years ago. Most of my friends are gone now, and that question from my grandson, I've asked myself that same thing more times than I can count. The difference is, I'm near the end looking back, and he's at the beginning looking forward. And somewhere between where he is and where I am, I think I finally get it. Took me about 60 years, but I think I get it now. We live in a world that's obsessed with impact. Everyone wants to leave a mark, change the world, be remembered, build something that lasts. I see it everywhere. People chasing careers they think will make them important, posting things online, hoping someone will notice, measuring their worth by how many people know their name, or how many likes they get, or how much money sits in their account. And I understand it. I really do. When you're young, you want to matter. You want your life to count for something. But here's what I've learned, after nearly 9 decades of being alive. The things that actually matter rarely feel like they matter at the time. They feel ordinary, small, easy to overlook, and that's exactly why most people miss. Let me tell you about a man named Walter. He owned a shoe repair shop on the corner of 5th and Madison for 35 years. Tiny place, barely room for 2 customers. Walter never married, no kids. Lived alone in a small apartment above the shop. He had a few old chairs against the wall, worn out, with flat cushions. Anyone who wanted to sit could sit. He didn't talk much, just worked on shoes, and sometimes asked how you were doing. Not in a nosy way. Just asked. When Walter died, I figured his funeral would be quiet. Maybe a handful of people from the neighborhood. The man fixed his shoes. He didn't run a company, didn't give speeches, didn't have a website, a following, or whatever people have now. He just had a little shop that smelled like leather and glue. But when I walked into that church, I couldn't find a seat, standing room only. And I remember thinking, how is this possible? Then people started standing up to speak, and I understood. A man in his 40s stood up first. He said when he was 18, he'd run away from home. Had nothing. No money, no plan, just anger and a pair of worn-out sneakers. He wandered into Walter's shop because the door was open and he didn't know where else to go. Walter looked at him for a second, didn't ask questions, didn't lecture, just handed him a cup of coffee, black in a styrofoam cup, and said, "Those shoes of yours need new heels. Sit down, I'll fix them." The kid sat there all afternoon. Didn't say much. Walter didn't push. Just worked on those shoes like they were the most important thing in the world. By evening, That kid decided to go back home instead of doing something he'd regret. He said Walter probably saved his life that day, and Walter never even knew it, never asked his name, never followed up, just fixed his shoes and let him sit. A woman stood up next. She said during her divorce, the hardest years of her life, she'd bring her shoes to Walter's shop just to have someone to talk to. Walter remembered her daughter's name, Emma, remembered what grade she was in, asked about her every time. She said in those years when she felt invisible to everyone, including herself, Walter saw her. That was enough. Sometimes that's all it takes. Story after story. People whose lives had been touched by a man who thought he was just repairing soles and replacing laces. Walter wasn't trying to matter. He was just being present, but he mattered enormously. I think we've got it backwards. We think mattering means being seen by crowds, being known, being remembered in some big public way. But that's not how life actually works. Life is built on small moments between people. A conversation that shifts how someone sees themselves. A kindness that arrives exactly when someone's about to give up. Showing up when it's not convenient. Listening when you'd rather be doing something else. These things don't feel significant when they're happening. They feel routine, unremarkable. That's why we dismiss them. But those are the moments that hold everything together. And here's the part that haunts me. You don't get to go back. The people I could have shown up for, the conversations I could have had, the moments I let slip because I was tired or busy or just not paying attention. I can't get those back. Nobody tells you that when you're young, you think time stretches out forever. It doesn't. When I was 41, I went through the worst stretch of my life. My plumbing business was barely hanging on. We'd just lost a baby, second miscarriage. Ruth was grieving in a way I didn't know how to reach, and I was falling apart myself, but trying not to show it. I felt like a failure, in every way a man can. One night, I ended up at a downtown bus stop, past midnight. Cold. I wasn't waiting for a bus. I didn't know what I was doing there. I just wanted to disappear, not die. Exactly. Just stop existing for a while. Stop feeling like I was letting everyone down. A man walked by, Eugene. I'd seen him a few times at church. We'd never really talked. He stopped, looked at me sitting there in the cold, and he didn't ask what was wrong. Didn't give me that look people give when they think you're falling apart. Just said, "Harold, you hungry? I know a place that sells sandwiches till 2 in the morning. Guy makes a good Reuben." I didn't want to go, but I went. Don't know why. Maybe because he didn't make it weird. We sat in that sandwich shop for over an hour. Fluorescent lights are buzzing. He talked about his dog, some mutt named Chester, who kept eating his shoes, about the weather turning, about how the Browns were going to break his heart again, same as every year. Normal things. Stupid things. And somehow, in the middle of that completely ordinary conversation, something in me settled. The weight didn't disappear, but it shifted. I didn't want to disappear anymore. I went home, I woke up the next morning, and kept going. Eugene probably forgot about that night by the next week. We never talked about it again, but I never forgot. That moment changed the direction of my life, and he had no idea. That's the thing about mattering. It almost never announces itself. You won't get a notification saying, "Congratulations, you just changed someone's life." Most of the time you'll never know. You'll do something that feels small to you and it'll be everything to someone else. And you'll move on thinking it didn't amount to anything. My wife Ruth had this habit I used to tease her about. Every birthday, every single one, she'd send handwritten cards, not just to family, to neighbors, old co-workers she hadn't seen in 20 years. The woman who sold vegetables at the farmer's market, the mailman. Anyone she'd connected with, even briefly, got a card. She'd sit at the kitchen table with her reading glasses sliding down her nose, writing out each one by hand. Her handwriting wasn't pretty, kind of messy, actually. Slanted to the left. But she kept at it. I used to say, Ruth, just send a text or an email. Nobody reads cards anymore. She'd look at me over those glasses and smile and keep writing. After she passed, I found a box in her closet full of cards people had sent back to her over the years, dozens of them. And in almost every one, someone mentioned how much her cards meant, how they'd kept them, how they'd read them during hard times when they needed to feel like someone remembered they existed. One woman wrote that Ruth's birthday card arrived the same day she found out she had cancer, and it was the only thing that made her smile that week. Ruth wasn't trying to be significant. She was just reaching out, letting people know she was thinking of them. But she mattered more than she ever realized, and I can't tell her that now. That's the thing about waiting. Sometimes you wait too long. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was young. Your life doesn't need to be extraordinary to matter. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. The pressure to be exceptional, to stand out, to make a big splash, that pressure crushes people. It makes them feel like their ordinary life isn't enough, like showing up for their family, doing their work honestly, being kind to the people around them. Like none of that counts unless it's impressive to strangers. But the truth is, almost everything that holds our world together is done by people no one will ever remember. Parents who wake up in the middle of the night with sick children. Workers who show up on time and do their jobs well without anyone noticing. Friends who send a message when they sense something's off. Neighbors who shovel each other's driveways without being asked. People who hold doors open, who let others merge in traffic. Who say thank you and actually mean it. Small, unremarkable acts, but without them, everything falls apart. You want to know if you matter? Don't look at your follower count. Don't look at your job title or your bank account. Look at the people directly in front of you. Are you present with them? Really present, not just physically there while your mind is somewhere else. Are you honest with them? Are you kind when you don't have to be? Do you keep your word even when it's inconvenient? Do you make space for their pain without rushing to fix it? Do you celebrate when good things happen to them even when your own life feels stuck? These questions won't land you on magazine covers. They won't build your brand or expand your influence, but they'll determine whether your life actually meant something. I've been thinking about Marcus's question a lot since that day on the bench. Does it matter if I'm here? And I've realized the problem is the question itself. Because when we ask if we matter, we're usually asking if we matter in some grand, measurable way, if we're important, influential, exceptional. But mattering doesn't work like that. Mattering is quieter, more personal. It's knowing that your presence or absence would make a real difference to the real people in your life. Not to the world, not to strangers on the internet, to the people who actually know you. When my granddaughter Lily was 8, she was terrified of riding a bike. Her older brother had learned in 2 days, made it look easy, and she felt stupid for struggling. She wanted to quit. I told her we'd practice together. 20 minutes a day, every day after school, for 2 weeks straight. I just walked beside her, one hand near the back of the seat, didn't push, didn't get frustrated when she wobbled or when she wanted to stop, just stayed next to her until she found her balance. By the end of those 2 weeks, she was riding on her own, wobbly, but riding. Now she's 19. Probably doesn't remember those afternoons, but I do. Because I know that if I hadn't been there patient and steady, she might have decided she was bad at things that required practice, might have carried that with her. That matters. Not because it's impressive, because it's real. The older I get, the more I see that most of what we chase is smoke. Status fades. Achievements get forgotten faster than you'd believe. People move on from your accomplishments like they never happened. I've watched it happen. Built things I thought would last. They didn't. Not really. But people don't forget how you made them feel. They don't forget that you showed up when it would have been easier not to. They don't forget that you saw them when they felt invisible. Those things stick. They echo forward into lives you'll never see, into people you'll never meet. Last week I stopped at a convenience store to buy milk. Late evening. The young man at the register couldn't have been older than 19-20, looked like he hadn't slept in days. Red eyes, stubble, moving slowly, as every motion cost him something. He was wearing a name tag that said Derek, but the D was peeling off. I could have just paid and left. That's what most people do. That's what I would have done 10 years ago, probably. But I looked at him and asked, "You doing okay?" He looked up, surprised, like nobody had asked him that in a while. Maybe nobody had. Then his eyes got wet, just for a second, and he blinked it away fast. Told me he'd been working double shifts here and at a warehouse across town, because his mom lost her job 2 months ago and they were behind on rent. His little sister needed braces. He was 19 years old, carrying all of that and trying not to let anyone see him crack. We talked for maybe 4 minutes. I didn't have advice. I didn't have solutions. I just told him what he was doing took real guts. That his mom was lucky to have him. That most people would have folded by now. But he was still standing, still showing up. When I left, he thanked me. Then he thanked me again, and I could tell he meant it. Did that conversation change the world? No. Did it matter to Derek in that moment? I think it did. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Be in the moment we're in with the person in front of us and not miss it because we're too busy thinking about something bigger. So, here's what I told Marcus that day on the bench. And maybe I'm telling you too. Yes, what you do matters, but probably not in the ways you think it does. It matters in the small moments, the unglamorous ones, the ones that never make it onto a resume, a highlight reel, or whatever people post these days. It matters when you choose patience instead of frustration, when you tell the truth, even when a lie would be easier, when you help someone without expecting anything in see, when you stay when walking away would be simpler. Your life doesn't have to be a spectacle to matter. It just has to be honest, present, kind. And that's harder than it sounds, because those things require you to pay attention, to show up even when you're tired, to care even when it's inconvenient and nobody's keeping score. But that's where real significance lives. Not in the spotlight, in the steady, quiet work of being human with other humans. I don't have many years left. Maybe 5, maybe 10 if I'm lucky, probably less. And when I think about what I want my life to have meant, I don't think about achievements or recognition. I think about the people I loved well, the moments I was actually there, not just physically, but really there. The times I helped without needing credit, the conversations where I listened instead of waiting for my turn to talk, the times I didn't miss the moment. Those are the things that mattered. Those are the things that will outlast me. Marcus asked if it would matter if he wasn't here. The answer is yes. Not because he's going to be famous or successful or exceptional by anyone else's standards, but because there are people in his life who would notice his absence, people who need him to show up, people who will remember how he made them feel long after they forget what he accomplished. That's true for him, and it's true for you. If any of this means something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd share it with someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment. Tell me one small thing you'll pay more attention to. Not something impressive, something real. Because that's where it starts. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this one. I've still got a few things left to say, and I'd rather say them to people who actually want to listen.